What if I told you that one of the most influential empire builders in human history isn't someone most people could pick out of a lineup? He wasn't a sword-waving megalomaniac or a name carved into every ancient monument, but he reshaped the map of the world and left behind a legacy that still echoes today. Let's talk about Cyrus the Great, founder of the Persian Empire, a ruler who changed how power worked in the ancient world and maybe still has something to say to us in 2025. Cyrus II of Persia was born around 600 BCE, though the exact year is debated. His early life is a tangle of myth, legend, and political spin. What we know for sure is that he came from Anshan, a kingdom in what's now southwestern Iran, which at the time was a vassal state under the control of the Median Empire. But Cyrus wasn't interested in staying under someone else's rule. In 550 BCE, he led a rebellion that overthrew the Medes. Not through some wild revolution, but through strategic alliances, careful timing, and a healthy dose of military intelligence. With the fall of the Medes, Cyrus stepped into the spotlight. Persia was no longer a junior partner. It was the new power on the stage. This moment marks the founding of the Achaemenid Empire, what would become the largest empire the world had ever seen up to that point. It would stretch from the Aegean Sea in the west to the Indus River in the east, a multicultural, multi-ethnic realm held together not by brute force alone, but by policy, innovation, and diplomacy. Cyrus was, without question, a conqueror. He fought wars, he annexed territory, he built an empire through military strength. But unlike so many of his contemporaries, Cyrus understood that enduring power doesn't just come from defeating enemies. It comes from turning former enemies into allies. This is what made Cyrus different. He didn't force his subjects into a single mold. He respected their customs, their languages, their religions. He allowed local leaders to remain in power as long as they pledged loyalty and paid taxes. It sounds almost obvious now, but it was nearly unheard of in the 6th century BCE. After unifying the Persians and Medes, Cyrus turned his attention west to the wealthy kingdom of Lydia, ruled by the famously rich king Croesus. Around 547 BCE, Cyrus defeated Croesus in a series of campaigns that brought most of Asia Minor under Persian control. The riches of Lydia, its gold, its cities, and its trade routes, now flowed into Cyrus's empire. Then came Central Asia. Tribes in modern-day Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and beyond either submitted or were absorbed through further conquest. By the late 540s BCE, Cyrus controlled a vast and growing empire. But his greatest achievement was still ahead. In 539 BCE, Cyrus set his sights on Babylon, the crown jewel of Mesopotamia. Babylon wasn't just another city. It was a superpower, a symbol of ancient prestige, wealth, and religious authority. Its ruler, King Nabonidus, was deeply unpopular. He'd alienated the powerful priesthood by prioritizing his personal religious preferences over the traditional worship of Marduk, Babylon's main deity. Politically, culturally, and religiously, the kingdom was fractured. Cyrus didn't miss a beat. He advanced on Babylon with both military strength and a clever message. He positioned himself not as a destroyer, but as a restorer of proper order. And whether through actual support or clever propaganda, Babylon's gates opened without a major battle. The city welcomed him. This is where Cyrus truly changed the game. He didn't plunder the city. He didn't dismantle its temples or humiliate its people. Instead, he presented himself as the chosen servant of Marduk, the Babylonian god. He restored traditional religious practices and returned sacred items to temples. The inscription known as the Cyrus Cylinder describes this moment, and while it may exaggerate a bit, the basic facts hold up. Cyrus took Babylon with minimal resistance and maximized public goodwill. But the impact of this moment went far beyond Babylon itself. Among the people living in exile in the city were the Israelites, members of the Kingdom of Judah who had been forcibly deported decades earlier after Jerusalem was conquered by the Babylonians. Their temple had been destroyed, their homeland occupied. They had spent 2 generations in a foreign land, trying to maintain their identity and beliefs under imperial rule. Cyrus changed everything for them. Not long after taking Babylon, he issued an edict allowing displaced peoples, including the Israelites, to return to their ancestral lands. He didn't just give them permission. He provided financial support to rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. That's not just tolerance. That's active support for a foreign religion by a king who had no obligation to care about it. For the Jewish people, this was a turning point. The exile was over. The Second Temple period could begin. Cyrus is even referred to in the Hebrew Bible as the Anointed One, a Messiah. That's an extraordinary title, especially considering Cyrus wasn't Jewish. He's the only non-Jew ever given that designation in the Hebrew Scriptures. So why did he do it? Some historians argue it was purely strategic, a way to secure loyalty from restive populations and stabilize his empire. Others believe he may have had a genuine interest in religious pluralism. Maybe it was both. Either way, the results speak volumes. Cyrus's policies allowed people to worship freely, rebuild their lives, and remain loyal to the empire, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. That was revolutionary. From that point forward, Cyrus continued to rule an empire that stretched across continents and cultures. He established administrative systems, built infrastructure, and maintained relative peace across a region that had never before been unified at such scale. His policies laid the foundation for Persian rule under his successors, Cambyses, Darius, and Xerxes, and influenced how empires would be managed for centuries to come. He died around 530 BCE, likely in battle on the empire's northeastern frontier. His tomb still stands at Pasargadae, a modest but dignified structure. It was later visited by Alexander the Great, who had conquered the Persian Empire but still paid tribute to Cyrus's memory. So, what does Cyrus mean to us today? In 2025, we live in a world grappling with questions of diversity, power, and how to coexist across difference. Cyrus offers an early model, imperfect but instructive, of how to build a political system that doesn't rely solely on coercion. He showed that it's possible to lead with strength without erasing culture, to govern an empire without silencing the beliefs of its people. His name lives on in more places than you might expect, from modern Iran, where he's regarded as a national hero, to Enlightenment Europe, where thinkers like Thomas Jefferson and Voltaire admired him as a model of enlightened kingship. Cyrus the Great wasn't perfect. No historical figure is. But he left behind more than just territory. He left a vision of leadership based on respect, strategy, and inclusion. In a time when power often meant brute dominance, Cyrus showed that empire didn't have to mean oppression, that greatness could come not just from what you conquer, but from what you preserve. And that's why, more than 2,500 years later, we're still saying his name.